Step back in time and rediscover 25 forgotten recipes tucked deep inside old cookbooks. These quirky, clever dishes once graced vintage kitchens, and many deserve a second chance at your table. Once a showstopper at bridge clubs and church luncheons, tomato aspic salad was a wobbly, savory gelatin made from seasoned tomato juice, often molded and studded with celery, olives, or shrimp. Served cold, this tangy creation sat proudly on lettuce leaves, sometimes with a dollop of mayonnaise. Aspics were the height of sophistication in mid-century cookbooks, offering visual flair and a strange, refreshing bite. It was a way to transform humble ingredients into something elegant and structured. Housewives loved it for its make-ahead convenience and dramatic presentation. As gelatin fell out of favor and savory jellies lost their appeal, tomato aspic quietly disappeared. Today, its strange charm seems almost alien to modern palates. Maybe there's room again for something bold, retro, and completely unexpected on the table. Tomato aspic was never about flavor alone. It was about form, spectacle, and daring to serve salad that jiggles. Creamy, rich, and elegant, chicken a la king was once a dinner party favorite, featured in nearly every mid-century cookbook. Tender chicken, mushrooms, and bell peppers simmered in a velvety sherry cream sauce, ladled over toast points, rice, or puff pastry. Struck a perfect balance between comfort food and culinary flair, often made with leftovers, but served like royalty. While its origins are debated, dish rose to prominence in the 1940s and 50s, beloved by home cooks for being both simple and impressive. Canned soup revolution later produced shortcuts. Homemade versions still had heart. Over time, changing dietary trends and the rise of global flavors edged it out of rotation. One bite of real, from-scratch chicken a la king brings back the cozy luxury of old kitchens. It was a dish that said, made something special. Maybe it's time we crown it king once again. Loaf was once the crown jewel of retro meat dishes, especially in Pennsylvania Dutch and Southern cookbooks. Made from ground ham and pork, breadcrumbs, and eggs, it was shaped like meatloaf, but sweeter, pinker, and far more festive. What set it apart? Sticky, tangy pineapple glaze poured over the top before baking. The result was a glossy, sweet-savory main dish, perfect for potlucks and Sunday dinners. Families often reserved ham loaf for holidays, making it feel extra special. Texture was firmer than meatloaf, and the flavor walked a unique line between salty and candied. As processed meats fell out of favor and taste trends moved towards savory minimalism, ham loaf faded. Today, it's hard to find outside of church cookbooks and Amish markets. Its retro charm and surprising deliciousness makes it a dish worth reviving. Sweet glaze, hearty slices, and nostalgic warmth, ham loaf brought it all. Hold on, next up is a pie so old-fashioned, its main ingredient might surprise you. Hint, it's a vinegar lover's delight. Born out of necessity during the Depression and pioneer days, vinegar pie is a forgotten gem of resourceful baking. With lemons scarce or too expensive, home bakers used vinegar to provide tang and brightness in custard-style pies. Result? Surprisingly delicate dessert with a buttery crust, soft filling, and a sweet-sour flavor profile that echoed lemon meringue. Spiced with cinnamon or nutmeg, it was often topped with whipped cream or left simple. Found in frontier cookbooks and make-do recipe sections, vinegar pie speaks to the creativity of cooks who turned pantry basics into something elegant. As access to fresh fruit grew and lemon desserts dominated, vinegar pie fell into obscurity. For those who've tasted it, it offers a perfect balance. Humble, sweet, quietly complex. It's proof that a good pie doesn't need fancy fruit, just cleverness, courage, and a good rolling pin. In old European-inspired cookbooks, cabbage rolls were often filled not just with meat and rice, with sweet surprises like raisins, cinnamon, and nutmeg. These spiced versions were especially popular in Jewish and Eastern European kitchens, offering a savory sweet flavor profile that modern recipes often skip. Ground beef or lamb mixed with rice, onions, and spices was bundled in blanched cabbage leaves and simmered in a tomato-based sauce enriched with sugar or honey. Sweet touches weren't just for fun, they balanced the acidity of the sauce and complemented the richness of the meat. Served hot at family dinners or holidays, these rolls were hearty and warming, each bite a nod to a different place and time. Today, sweet cabbage rolls are rare, often replaced by simpler, savory versions. That touch of raisin and spice told a deeper story, Reminder that food can be both memory and migration in a single dish. You ever made a forgotten recipe from your grandmother's cookbook? Discovered a surprising ingredient combo that worked beautifully? Share your vintage kitchen wins in the comments. Long before coconut took over the macaroon scene, many old cookbooks featured a thriftier, crunchier version made with cornflakes. Cornflake macaroons combined pantry staples like egg whites, sugar, and crushed cornflakes to create a crispy, chewy drop cookie with just the right amount of sweetness. Some versions added shredded coconut, others used chopped nuts, or a hint of vanilla extract. See them in the lunchbox treats or quick cookies section, designed to use what was already on hand. Kids loved their crunch, moms loved their ease. As boxed cookies became the norm and fancier baked goods stole the spotlight, the humble cornflake macaroon quietly vanished from most kitchens. Today they might sound quaint. Bake up a batch. You'll discover they still hold up beautifully. Slightly crisp edges, soft centers, and a nostalgic flavor. Feels like a handwritten recipe card from the back of Grandma's kitchen drawer. Next, meat and fruit casserole, a spicy dessert that's not quite cake, a soup that once claimed to cure everything but a broken heart. Before fusion cuisine had a name, mid-century cooks were already pairing savory meats with fruit in rich, comforting casseroles. Unforgotten favorite, pork and apples casserole. Layered browned pork chops or ground pork with sliced apples, onions, and a touch of brown sugar or cider vinegar. Baked slowly, it turned into a sweet savory masterpiece where the apples softened into a tangy sweet glaze over tender meat. Some recipes added breadcrumbs or cornbread stuffing on top, giving it a crisp golden crust. Found in 1950s family dinner cookbooks and apple grower pamphlets, this dish was especially popular in autumn when apples were abundant. As quick stir-fries and skillet meals took over, slow-bake beauty faded from weekly menus. Still, it's worth rediscovering. Flavor combo is timeless, and it fills the house with the scent of harvest and home. Pork and apples may be old-fashioned, but on the right night, it feels just right. Yes, you read that right, tomato soup. This quirky cake recipe found in 1960s and church cookbooks used a can of condensed tomato soup to create a moist, deeply spiced dessert. The soup gave the cake structure and tang, blending surprisingly well with cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, and raisins. Once baked, the tomato taste vanished, leaving behind a rich, subtly savory crumb that paired beautifully with cream cheese frosting or a simple powdered sugar glaze. Home bakers loved it for being budget-friendly and practically foolproof. It became a beloved bake sale item and potluck surprise, the kind of dessert people ate before you told them the secret ingredient. But as boxed cake mixes and more traditional flavors took over, tomato soup cake got left behind. Today, it feels like a culinary dare, but give it a try and you'll find what past generations knew. Sometimes weird works, especially when it's baked with spice, care, and curiosity. Before gelatin came in brightly colored boxes, it came from bones. One of the earliest, and now largely forgotten, forms of gelatin dessert was calf's foot jelly. Made by simmering a calf's foot for hours, the natural collagen created a clear, firm jelly. Once strained and clarified, it was flavored with lemon juice, sugar, and sometimes wine or brandy. The result? A wobbly, elegant dessert served in crystal dishes at Victorian tables, and later in turn-of-the-century cookbooks. Some versions were savory and served cold with meats, but sweet calf's foot jelly was prized for both beauty and nutritional value. It was once believed to restore health, especially for the sick or postpartum mothers. As powdered gelatin became common, the labor-intensive tradition faded. Today it might sound strange, but it's part of a long culinary lineage where food wasn't wasted, and every part of the animal had a purpose. Calf's foot jelly may be gone, but its legacy still wobbles in every gelatin mold we serve. But don't close that cookbook yet. We're heading into creamy soups, ketchup cakes, and a main dish once crowned the best thing you can do with ground beef. This rich, comforting soup first showed up in international cookbooks of the 1970s and early 80s, often inspired by Hungarian cafes and Eastern European home cooking. Hungarian mushroom soup combined sliced mushrooms, onions, paprika, dill, sour cream, and a splash of lemon juice for brightness. Flour and butter created a roux base, giving the soup a silky, thick consistency. It was earthy, creamy, and deeply satisfying, especially when served with crusty bread. While mushroom soup still exists, this specific spiced version, with its tangy, savory layers and paprika punch, has quietly vanished from many modern menus. Found mostly in old vegetarian cookbooks and Eastern Bloc recipe collections, it represented comfort, depth, and flavor born of frugality. Today's versions are often simplified or replaced with canned substitutes, but the original still shines for those who make it from scratch. It's not just soup, it's warmth in a bowl, with paprika on top and history stirred in. Have you ever discovered an unusual or forgotten ingredient that turned out to be the star of a vintage dish? Tell us your tastiest surprises in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Once a breakfast and brunch staple, cream chipped beef on toast, affectionately known as SOS by military families, was a savory comfort food found in nearly every mid-century military or home economics cookbook. Dried beef, sliced thin and sautéed in butter, was folded into a creamy white sauce made with flour and milk, then ladled over buttered toast or biscuits. Salty, warm, and satisfying, it was cheap and filling, perfect for feeding large families on a budget. It earned its nickname for its less than glamorous looks, but its popularity came from taste and practicality. This dish fueled American kitchens from the Great Depression through the post-war years and remained popular in diners into the 1980s. Today, it's rarely served outside of nostalgia-loving households or retro diners, but creamed chipped beef is a testament to resourceful cooking, transforming pantry scraps into hearty meals. And for those who remember it, it tastes like Saturday mornings, army mess halls, or grandma's enamel saucepan bubbling on the stove. Yes, ketchup cake was real. Found in quirky 1950s and 1960s cookbooks, this spice cake used ketchup not for tomato flavor, but for color and tang. The ingredients often included flour, brown sugar, cinnamon, cloves, and nutmeg, along with a generous pour of ketchup, which added moisture and a faintly fruity acidity. Surprisingly, the final product tasted like a classic spice cake. No strong tomato flavor, just a rich and lightly sweet crumb. Topped with cream cheese frosting, it was a hidden gem among novelty bakes. The idea sounds like a dare now, but ketchup cake was born from wartime rationing and Depression-era ingenuity, when vinegar and tomato concentrate were kitchen workhorses. As cookbooks became less experimental and more trend-driven, this oddball delight disappeared. But it's a testament to the playful spirit of old-school baking, where nothing was off-limits and flavor was always king. Ketchup in dessert? Believe it or not, it worked. Coming up, the original meat stretcher meal, a dessert from the Icebox era, and a pudding that somehow tastes like air and memory. One of the most charmingly named dishes of the 1950s, Porcupine meatballs featured ground beef mixed with uncooked rice, then simmered in tomato sauce until the rice puffed out, mimicking little porcupine quills. Found in countless community cookbooks, this dish was praised for stretching small amounts of meat into full family meals. It used just a few staples: beef, rice, onion, canned tomato soup or sauce, and basic seasoning. The magic happened in the simmer. Moisture from the sauce cooked the rice, fluffing it up as it poked through the meatball surface. The result was hearty, savory, and deeply satisfying. It became a weeknight favorite and a go-to for budget-minded households. But as frozen dinners and boxed helpers became more common, porcupine meatballs slowly rolled off the table. Still, they're easy to make, surprisingly delicious, and deserve a comeback. Because let's be honest, any recipe named after a woodland creature is worth remembering. Before no-bake became a trend, Icebox desserts were already household heroes. Icebox lemon squares were an early version of the modern lemon bar, but instead of being baked, they were chilled to set, made with crushed vanilla wafers or graham crackers for a crust, and topped with a mixture of condensed milk, lemon juice, and zest. The filling firmed up in the fridge until creamy but sliceable. Some versions added whipped cream or meringue for an extra layer of fluff. These desserts were especially popular in hot climates or summers when turning on the oven wasn't appealing. Icebox lemon squares had a clean, bright flavor and a creamy texture that made them feel light, even decadent. As baking techniques evolved and lemon bars got a formal crust and bake time, these chilled versions slipped into obscurity. But one bite of that tart, silky filling, and cool, crumbly base is enough to transport you straight back to Mom's vintage Pyrex dish. Straight out of vintage French cookbooks and high society American dinner tables, Floating Island, or Île Flottante, was a showy, elegant dessert that wowed guests from the 1930s to the 1960s. The concept? Fluffy poached meringue islands floating atop a sea of chilled vanilla custard, crème anglaise, often drizzled with caramel or chocolate sauce. The contrast in textures, light, airy egg white against velvety custard, made it a standout. It was surprisingly simple to make, but required care. Poach the meringue gently, stir the custard slowly, and assemble just before serving. Found in entertaining sections of vintage cookbooks, it faded from popularity as tastes shifted toward denser, richer desserts. Floating Island requires patience and a soft touch, but the reward is ethereal. It's the kind of dessert that whispers instead of shouts, and for those who remember it, it tastes like elegance, restraint, and quiet Sunday dinners under a chandelier. Which vintage dessert do you think deserves a comeback? Floating Island, tomato soup cake, or another lost gem? Tell us in the comments which one you'd serve at your next dinner party. If you've never heard of mock apple pie, you're not alone. But mid-century cookbooks considered it pure genius. Made without a single apple, this Depression-era dessert used crushed Ritz crackers to mimic apple filling. How? A mixture of sugar, water, lemon juice, and cream of tartar was poured over the crackers to simulate the sweet tart flavor and soft texture of baked apples. With cinnamon and butter, the illusion was shockingly convincing. Nestled inside a double pie crust and baked until golden, it sliced like a classic apple pie and fooled more than a few guests at the table. The recipe became a beloved curiosity, printed on Ritz cracker boxes for years. It was born out of necessity. No apples, no problem. But as fresh produce became more available and novelty lost its appeal, mock apple pie quietly crumbled. Still, it's a testament to the resourcefulness of past generations, and a reminder that with creativity, flavor doesn't always need the expected ingredient. Corn pudding was once a Southern and Midwestern staple, savory, slightly sweet, and always served warm at holiday tables and Sunday suppers. This custard-style side dish combined creamed corn, whole kernels, eggs, butter, milk, and sometimes a pinch of sugar or nutmeg. Baked until golden and set, it was soft in the middle and slightly crisp on top, a comforting in-between of spoon bread and soufflé. It showed up often in older community and church cookbooks, especially in vegetable sections. Corn pudding was praised for being affordable, hearty, and crowd-pleasing. But as boxed mixes and frozen side dishes gained popularity, this simple baked beauty faded from regular rotation. Today, it's hard to find outside of traditional soul food diners or grandma's handwritten recipe cards, but when made from scratch, corn pudding still captures something rich and golden. Not just corn, but memory. One spoonful, and you're back in a warm kitchen filled with voices, stories, and second helpings. Salmon mousse in a fish-shaped gelatin mold was once the peak of culinary sophistication. In the 1950s, 1970s, it was the centerpiece of many fancy luncheons and bridal showers. Made with canned salmon, cream cheese or sour cream, lemon juice, gelatin, and herbs, it was whipped smooth, chilled until set, and then unmolded onto a bed of lettuce. Decorated with sliced cucumbers, olives, or hard-boiled egg slices, it was considered both artistic and impressive. Guests admired it before cautiously tasting it, and usually found it surprisingly light and savory. But by the 1990s, molded savory dishes felt dated, and salmon mousse went from centerpiece to punchline. Today, mousse has made a comeback in elegant kitchens, but molds, not so much. Still, this dish stands as a reminder of an era when presentation mattered just as much as flavor, and when opening a can of salmon was the beginning of something fancy, not fast. Still hungry? Next up, meat pies, molasses cookies, and a salad so sweet it belonged on the dessert table. You won't believe what passed for a side dish back then. Long before Pillsbury crusts and frozen pot pies, homemakers mastered the art of the hot water crust, a sturdy, rustic dough perfect for meat pies. Boiling water and lard or butter were mixed into flour to create a pliable, almost clay-like dough. It was pressed into pans or formed into hand pies, then filled with seasoned ground beef, pork, or game meat mixed with onions, herbs, and sometimes mashed potatoes. Popular in English, French Canadian, and Midwestern cookbooks, these pies were hearty, filling, and made to travel, perfect for picnics, church lunches, or laborers' midday meals. The crust held up beautifully without flaking or crumbling. But as baking became more about light, airy pastries, this robust dough recipe vanished from most modern books. Still, the flavor and texture are unforgettable. A slice of hot water crust meat pie is dense, savory, and a true taste of practicality baked into tradition. It's a dessert, it's a side, it's a salad in name only. Welcome to the world of pink fluff. Found in hundreds of 1960s, 1980s cookbooks under names like Strawberry Delight or Heavenly Hash, this pastel cloud was made from whipped topping, strawberry gelatin mix, cottage cheese, mini marshmallows, and crushed pineapple. Sometimes chopped pecans or mandarin oranges joined the party. Served chilled in Pyrex bowls at every potluck, it offered cool sweetness, a hit of fake fruit flavor, and a texture somewhere between mousse and pudding. Kids loved it, adults accepted it, and it somehow passed as salad, because it was in the salad chapter. As tastes shifted and Jell-O dishes fell from grace, pink fluff quietly faded away. But in its prime, it was the bring-to-share dish. Today, it feels like a playful time capsule, fluffy, sugary, and defiantly pink. It was never healthy, but it was unforgettable. Did your family ever make Jell-O salads, pink fluff, or other dessert salads? Tell us the wildest retro dish you remember, and whether you dare make it again. Elegant, airy, and once the darling of vintage dessert tables, Bavarian cream was a refined dessert that's now nearly vanished from home kitchens. Made from a silky custard base, usually with egg yolks, milk, and sugar, it was thickened with gelatin and folded with whipped cream before being chilled in molds. The result? A soft, luxurious dessert that jiggled like a dream and melted on the tongue. Often flavored with vanilla, coffee, or fruit puree, it was served plain or topped with raspberry sauce, chocolate drizzle, or shaved almonds. In old cookbooks, it sat proudly in the fancy desserts chapter, one tier below soufflés, but far above pudding. Though it required patience and finesse, Bavarian cream rewarded with lightness and sophistication. As instant puddings and boxed desserts took over, it faded into obscurity. But one bite brings back the charm of linen-covered tables, silver spoons, and desserts that whispered instead of shouted. We're almost there. But first, a gelatin trick. A biscuit you bake upside down, and a treat that wants to find dessert elegance in every hostess's cookbook. A true Jell-O masterpiece, ribbon gelatin salad was a layered showstopper that required time, color coordination, and nerves of steel. Each layer, usually in shades of lime, orange, strawberry, or lemon, was mixed with cream, yogurt, or sour cream to create opaque pastel tones. Poured one at a time into a mold and chilled between layers, it resembled edible stained glass when sliced. Some versions added crushed pineapple, chopped walnuts, or even mini marshmallows. Popular in the 1950s and 60s, it often appeared at Easter, church suppers, or baby showers. Housewives prided themselves on clean, perfect layers, and a mold that released without a wobble too many. As gelatin salads lost popularity, so did this time-intensive beauty. But ribbon gelatin wasn't just dessert, it was a display of patience, pride, and precision. Bring it back, and you're not just making dessert, you're reviving an edible art form that once dazzled dinner guests across generations. You've heard of pineapple upside-down cake, but in old Southern cookbooks, upside-down biscuits were the savory breakfast twist. Thick slices of bacon or ham were placed in the bottom of a greased muffin tin, often with a dab of brown sugar or maple syrup. Biscuit dough, rich with buttermilk and lard, was pressed on top and baked until golden. When flipped out of the tin, each biscuit revealed a sizzling, caramelized slice of meat on its top, salty, sticky, and irresistible. Served with eggs or on their own, they were a morning showstopper at potlucks and Sunday breakfasts alike. This clever twist disappeared as frozen breakfast sandwiches and toaster biscuits took over, but the magic of these upside-down beauties was in their balance of comfort and creativity. They didn't just flip expectations, they proved that a biscuit could be a meal, a surprise, and a memory, all in one. This light, airy dessert was once touted in cookbooks as both delicious and good for digestion. Prune whip combined stewed prunes with sugar and stiffly beaten egg whites, whipped until light and foamy, then baked gently or chilled in molds, sometimes topped with custard sauce. Prune whip was popular in the 1930s through 1950s as a healthful dessert for recovering patients or conscientious eaters. It graced hospital menus, grandmothers' tables, and even weight loss books. Though its texture was somewhere between meringue and mousse, it slowly lost appeal as prunes were branded as old-fashioned. Yet prune whip had dignity. It took time, intention, and a delicate hand. Its flavor was rich and deep, balanced by the lift of whipped whites. Today, prunes are staging a comeback as superfoods, but prune whip remains in the pages of old cookbooks, waiting to rise again. It's more than dessert, it's a bite of vintage wellness wrapped in velvet. Elegant and elaborate, Charlotte Roose was the height of culinary fashion in the early 20th century and clung to popularity in cookbooks through the 1960s. Lady fingers or sponge cake lined a mold, or often a tall glass, then filled with Bavarian cream or fruit-flavored mousse. Chilled until firm and sliced into elegant wedges or served straight from the glass, it was a centerpiece dessert, graceful, sweet, and celebratory. The quick versions used gelatin and whipped cream. More traditional ones required slow-cooked custard and time to set. For decades, Charlotte Roose was a mark of hostess skill and refinement, showing up at anniversaries, baby showers, and club luncheons. But as baking trends modernized and fewer people reached for ladyfingers or molds, the recipe faded into obscurity. Today it feels like a culinary relic, but a delicious one. Reintroducing Charlotte Roose isn't just dessert. It's a toast to the days when presentation mattered just as much as taste. Which one of these vintage recipes would you most love to resurrect in your kitchen? Or did we leave one out that your family still swears by? Tell us in the comments. We're all ears and forks. I hope you enjoyed this delicious stroll through forgotten kitchen treasures. Which recipe stirred your memory or your appetite? Let's keep vintage flavors alive, one dish at a time. Until next time.